So this video is still kind of a setup video for actual learning, but I'll try to keep it short. So first of all, let's talk about some of the basics of being a billionaire at a more granular level. The first thing is they call it mindset, but I don't like the word mindset because our mind is really, in a way, part of the reason why we can't become billionaires, because the mind is all about safety and security and getting approval from people and having a life that's in control. And so basically it's the source of all of our fears and hesitation. And so part of the process of becoming a billionaire is going to be being able to understand how your mind works so that you can use it where it's appropriate, right? You don't want to do something that ends up, killing you or putting you in danger. That's fine. But that same safety process will keep us from actually even hearing the right message about the right path to follow, because it's so, for most people, they're going to be almost by default against having so much power, really. And so what is that power really all about? It's about you're kind of holding that energy field of $1 billion, or these days, 100 billion or more is not that uncommon. And it takes something to hold that energy space. It takes a kind of a courage. So naturally, we don't really want to do that as people. So this is why I'm a mentor for leaders, because all leaders have, in some way, if they're getting anything done that matters, they've been able to bridge from the mind-centric way of looking at the world exclusively into their leader state, into courage, commitment, and things like that the mind doesn't really understand, but they're real and they have their own form of understanding. So we want to get the leader state. Then the next thing is to really get a clear vision of what you're wanting to accomplish. And so your vision for the world, is it really something that can produce enough value to create that much wealth? Because if you look at wealthy people, and we're talking about, mostly entrepreneurs. We're not talking about, I don't know, people that figured out how to steal $1 million from the government treasury. But even they that's not that easy. One of my teachers said, you think all rich people are criminals. Even they need a certain kind of state to be able to hold that energy so it just doesn't disappear, or so they don't get killed by some competitor. Mostly, I'm not interested in that part of the economy. I'm interested in peace and using these techniques to create a peace-based economy. But still, the next step is really designing your vision, and we do that with what I call your leader story. Then there's kind of a basic strategic plan. Like, it's once you really understand where you're going and what your vision is at a high level, then I can help you really get a game plan for the right steps in the right order. How did I learn how to do it in the right order? Because I did everything in the wrong order. And when I got to the end, it's like, oh, this is the right order. And really, one of the most right order things is to, first of all, if you don't have it already, to get your financial freedom, at least enough just to pay your bills so that you can stay focused on your project. And what a lot of people do, and I've dabbled in some crypto things, and in some of these communities, people say, well, when I get rich, I'm going to create like an eco farm residence. Well, this one guy outside of Austin, he had this idea. It was a beautiful idea, but he was saying, well, first I want to get rich, then I'll do it with the money. And whenever you're looking, it's like, first I'm going to get rich and then do the other. First of all, it's just not necessary. I was, eager to teach him, but some people just really stuck in their ways. And part of the challenge is I've worked with a lot of rich people who think that way, and they get their money and then they sort of squandered on their vision. And it's really sad to see millionaires and billionaires, not so many billionaires, they've got enough to kind of play with, and they've got certain principles that are in some ways a lot more powerful than your average millionaire. But I've seen some very wealthy people really squander that energy, that whole economic field that they build around themselves. And some people I've worked with directly, it's just really unfortunate. So, but anyway, if you are already wealthy, I'll help you conserve that while fulfilling your vision rather than thinking that you're going to do it all yourself. In fact, that's really where a lot of wealthy people, maybe they accumulated wealth in one industry. Now they want to become like, one of my old friends and funders, a guy named Doug Tompkins. And sadly, he died in a kayaking accident a few years ago. But he was a true hardcore environmentalist, but he wasn't a billionaire. And he one time, he told me he felt sad because he couldn't get Ted Turner. Also, he was a billionaire and he also cared about nature. And he said, I can't get Ted Turner on the phone. Like, I can't even get to his level just to have a conversation and work with him. And again, I could see what he was doing wrong, but who am I? I was just an activist. I never had the status of the money in order to prove that what I was saying was right, but I did succeed as an activist big time in Washington. And that's how I got here. It's like I made money for other people through selling the US government on protecting the US National Forests. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I did all the work and they got all the money. And I knew that would happen. But anyway, yeah, so he was limited pretty much by what he could do with his own money. And so that's a pitfall. A lot of times wealthy people, or if you've got a family office, sometimes we start to close in because the wealthy people are kind of used to getting their way with their money. And these issues that are really, the billion and trillion dollar issues require something a lot more than what you can do just by spending your own cash. They require, it's a different channel, but having a lot of cash can be really useful because, as you can see, people fawn over people who have money. They get a lot of attention. So if they're on the right channel, they can really mobilize a lot of resources. But even if you're not, you can, because I've done it. So if you're not already wealthy, if you're still working a day job, first step is to get enough financial freedom so that you can focus on your project. And a lot of people, again, they delay that. It's like, well, once I save up enough money, this is not a leader way of thinking. The leader is like, I'm going to start now. Obviously, you got to pay your bills. With the Make My Nut program, how I teach this, within 3 months or so, you can probably pay your own bills, or at least get close and see that you're on track to being able to get your financial freedom without having to get rich first or, save up a pile of money first. All right, what's next from that? Well, most kinds of paths toward having that much, when you're having a net worth of $1 billion, you really need to understand finance, financial instruments, the way the money supply works. And it's not all that complicated, to be honest. If it was too hard, no one would ever actually do it. And you look around, there's hundreds of billionaires out there. It's like they could do it. Why can't we? It's really just, it has to be easy. It actually has to be easy to be a billionaire. Otherwise, no one would achieve it. And it's getting easier and easier. Of course, $1 billion isn't as much as it used to be, but it's a good start. It's a good start. But if you're only motivated by money, I'm not saying that's bad. I respect people whose only motivation is money. And in fact, I can even help you, again, avoid mistakes. But I think in general, after you've got your first 100 million or two, what's going to really motivate you to get all the way to $1 billion? So that motivation, that story, the kind of thing you're wanting to create in the world that is so valuable, that's important as well as the kind of numeric goal. I think they're both important. A lot of people say, don't worry about the money, just follow your dream. No, if you don't actually have the money goal, then you won't make the decisions that will give you that kind of asymmetric gains and the minimizing, basically to get to $1 billion, you've got to minimize your risk, reduce the number of mistakes, and then you're making those risks, or your bets, so to speak, you're making those on things with huge asymmetric upside. So that's why, a lot of people have gotten wealthy in crypto. Is it really as asymmetric as it might be? I mean, for right now, Bitcoin, I haven't looked at the numbers lately, but it's somewhere around 60,000 USD, give or take. And people say, well, it's going to go to 1 million, but that's what's that? That's like maybe a 12x or 15x. That's asymmetric-ish, but it's not what the guys at the beginning got. They got 1,000x or several thousand x upside for their risk. Anyway, if you're interested in just getting money by taking those kind of bets, that's super cool. And again, even if that's it, even if you don't have any vision except I just want to be a billionaire and I just want to have that FU money and show it and prove that I did it, like I can help you with that. And I'd love to. It would be a real honor. And not necessarily I'm going to teach you every move, but how do you distinguish, like who's going to be your group of advisors? And that was one of the great things that Horst Rechelbacher taught me, when we were friends. He said, because he was like an herbalist and a barber, hairstylist, not just a barber. He was a famous hairstylist. He had become his mom was an herbalist in Austria, and their family was so broke they couldn't send him to school. So they said, you can go cut hair, you can be a barber, and that's how the family survived. And somehow, step by step, he kind of got on the star track and ended up in Milan, Italy, where, a fashion center of Europe, and was doing the hairstyles for the famous models. So suddenly, and especially in that era, there were the famous stylists. So he went on a world tour and ended up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was just doing a world tour as a hairstylist, but at the same time, because his mom was an herbalist, he was inventing his own shampoos and things. And that was the real secret of the Aveda company, was it used the limbic system, which is our sense of smell. The sense of smell is an amazing thing, which almost nobody even really cares about anymore, but it can really change the way you feel and emotions. And he was, if we'd have meetings, he'd have his people would be spraying the room with different plant essences. It was really interesting. And he taught me about that as well. And so the sense of smell can evoke all kinds of different emotions depending on what you put in there. And anyway, the people who was cutting hair for in Minnesota said, stay here, we'll fund your company. And he showed me his very first bottle of Horst shampoo. And they said, we'll fund your company. We'll get you started. So just stay here, because they were women from the community. They wanted to be there to cut their hair, I guess. And they were rich too. So they got it together, and with that money, he started the Aveda Corporation. And by the time he and I had become friends, he had sold it for, I believe the number was $500 million. But we're talking about the late 90s. So that used to be a lot of money. It was a nice number, not a whole billion. He's probably a billionaire now. I wouldn't say we lost touch. He didn't really want to talk to me anymore, because he really put a lot of faith in me. And I, trying to always do stuff I don't know how to do, I made some mistakes that were unfortunate, but I learned a lot about how to do what he did. And he said, Mark, I don't know that much about business. My job is to keep the intention. Like, he was a hardcore environmentalist and ecologist and herbalist. And I keep the intention. He drew this picture. There was him in the center of a circle. He said, I just hire and get the best people I can. And he showed all those people as dots around the circle. So his whole job was just basically finding the right people to lead in their niche, and then keeping the intention of the whole organization focused on his vision. It was so simple, it was so beautiful. And he was a sweet guy. I really liked him then. I'm not chasing after people, but if anyone, I would love to talk to him again, just to say hi if the opportunity arises. And I've had other lessons from, some of them were more, I won't go into all other people's names, because he was a really beautiful character, you could say, in terms of what he really wanted for the environment. And he also was very frustrated because he told me, he'd given $50,000 to Al Gore for when he was running for president, and that he'd never even gotten a thank you note. And it hurt his feelings because he knows how hard he had worked to accumulate the money, and to have people just be inconsiderate. I mean, at the minimum, it made him feel sad. And a lot of times a lot of wealthy people I've met are sad when they think about the future. I'm just not. It's not because I'm, just a dumb optimist. It's because I see the path forward, which is why I haven't given up. I really think that as bad as things are in the world, there's so much good, but it's like still a lot of things are just like seeds shooting up from the ground, and they need water. And the whole essence of my life for the past 20 years is to get that water. But then really once I learned how to do all of that, I also had to learn, it's like, well, we need people. And that's why the phase I'm in now is really all about people, getting people up to speed in terms of their lead or state, then teaching them the moves, whether that's about finance, whether that's about politics, basic ABCs about business. They're just basic fundamentals. And the more people I can get to be able to handle that kind of responsibilities, like the more billionaires I can help launch who are doing things I care about, that's going to help really accelerate. Because right now, a lot of the money still goes through Silicon Valley. And I'm fine with that, but there's a big world. There's a lot of tech-oriented stuff that needs help. And those kind of people are generally not getting what they need to fulfill their dreams. Whereas in Silicon Valley, if you've got a hot tech idea, you're going to get funded. You may or may not succeed, but you're going to get a good chance. And if you fail, you'll get another chance. But you move outside of, Silicon Valley and a few other hotspots, and you want to work on something, like ecology, like a new paradigm for health. It's not so friendly. It's not so easy. But the money's there, the people are there, but you have to look elsewhere. You have to stop being so focused on, venture capital people and start focusing on other sources of money. And there's so many ways to acquire the resources you need to succeed. So those are the basic stages. You're, getting yourself able to visualize success and hold that, having a good idea of how you're going to do that, being able to share that idea with others to build support for your leadership, and then step by step getting to the point where you can actually truly execute. And again, avoiding 20 plus years of mistakes. You do all that, I think you can go a long way. And I hope you'll, check in on my website, give me a call. But, if there's a last lesson, it's like, get started. Like, don't wait until later when you think, well, I'll have more money later. Life doesn't really work that way. And you don't need to risk what you have now or later to succeed. So that's a lot of messages. That's a basic framework. I'm going to get in more granular into some of these steps in the next videos.